Hi, and welcome back to Unmasking the Trans Movement with John Euler. I'm your host, Brad Wilder. Today on the show, a concerned parent. He's out in Ottawa, but he knows Billboard Chris out in Vancouver, who was assaulted yesterday. Dr. Ann is also with him to break this story down. Lots and lots to get to as the trans movement is starting to get violent. We'll be back with more on Unmasking the Trans Movement right after these.
In this age of gender confusion, it's difficult to find advice you can trust to help protect your child from those who would seek to unduly influence them, setting them up to be manipulated and exploited. On Unmasking the Trans Movement, we discuss, educate, and deliver the info parents want and need to help their children, grandchildren, and even themselves. Each week, we connect you with the clinical professionals and subject matter experts who understand what this movement is all about and how to navigate around this disturbing mental health issue. Join UnmaskingTheTransMovement.com for our next webinar, where John Euler, Dr. Ann Gillies, and our clinical experts provide the advice you can trust to help protect your child from those who would seek to unduly influence them and set them up to be manipulated and exploited within the trans movement. Our webinars provide access to supporting groups discussing the issues you want to talk about with other parents and experts alike. Learn to understand how the language has changed, stay up to date on this new lingo, and be able to have a rational, understanding conversation with your child who might be getting dragged into, sorry for the pun, this evil trans agenda. Our mission is clear: to unmask the deception and protect the most vulnerable among us. For webinar dates, times, and pricing, please visit our website at unmaskingthetransmovement.com/webinars. Welcome back to Unmasking the Trans Movement. I'm Brad Wilder. Today on the show, Dr. Ann Gillies is here along with Shannon Boucher. They're going to talk all about what happened yesterday with Billboard Chris in Vancouver at, I'm going to guess it was a trans drag rally, as they are starting to put on and happen more and more across the country. Dr. Ann, it's always great to have you with us on the program. John is unable to be here today, but Dr. Ann, I know that yesterday's situation ended up causing a little bit of animosity within the crowd itself. Maybe you can tell us more.
Well, yes, and I just actually came across that this morning. And first of all, I want to introduce Shannon to each of you. Shannon and I think we met about 3 years ago, right, Shannon, in Ottawa? Must be.
We met last year in Ottawa at the Manning Center conference, Canadian.
Right. We met previously, I think, though, didn't we? Anyways, nevertheless, I've been following you for a little while. Anyways, Shannon is a concerned parent, and he's going to tell a little bit about his story as we go along. But we thought what we would do today is begin with a video of what happened in Vancouver yesterday. And I may as well just go ahead. And Shannon, during this video, you're going to do a little bit of dialogue and just tell us what's happening. We're not going to play the sound because, quite honestly, the transgender woman, so this is male to female, that actually perpetrated the assault. It's just vicious. So anyways, we're going to skip the sound, but Shannon's going to provide some dialogue so you understand what's going on. So let's make sure that I can get this running well, up and well. And there we go. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Awesome. I'm going to start this now. This is Billboard Chris.
If you're not familiar with Billboard Chris, Chris travels around North America wearing signs like you can see a little bit in the frame here, saying children cannot consent to puberty blockers. He's been able to raise a tremendous amount of awareness about the trans movement and the medicalization of children with complex mental health issues. You can see the person who stepped into the frame and behind with the flags. And this is a trans woman, a biological man, who is displaying some very characteristic male aggression here. And he's yelling louder and louder repeatedly at Chris, expletives and demanding that he harm himself, and people are starting around them to close in and yell as well. Now, when I look at this, I see I see a borderline riot. I see the kind of emotions and energy that are escalating out of control. And you can see this person just goes right over the edge here in a second, where they grab Chris and haul him to the ground. It happened very quickly. He wears a string around his neck for a front and back sign. And in an interview afterwards, or a video he shot from his car, you can see that the string that one of the signs was on had been pulled, and there was a big rope burn across his neck. And this was the second time he was assaulted yesterday.
This is it's so disconcerting, and I mean, we may end up playing that again. I'm not sure, but and I met Billboard. It was Billboard Chris, that I met about 4 years ago in Vancouver. That's right. Sorry, my brain's not tracking right today either. Brad and I are on a roll. But I met him. We were doing a kind of we weren't the activists, but we were just presenting on the streets, at the library in Vancouver, on medicalization of our children against that. And Billboard Chris was there. And at that time, the aggression was not what it is today. I mean, they threw some rocks and eggs, but the police were pretty on top of it. We were really actually quite happy with the police response. That's not what happened here. I mean, this is just kind of, to me, where were the police when this person was screaming, and literally she was screaming at Billboard Chris? Well, he's trying to do an interview. Come on, let's get the facts straight and let's talk about what's going on there. What are your thoughts on the aggression and how it's escalating?
Yeah, I'd love your insight on this too, Dr. Gillies, and it's a shame I couldn't chat with John and have him here. But I think what we're seeing is, I have a vocabulary and unfortunately narcissistic abuse, because I grew up in a household where one of my parents was fit the profile of a person who was narcissistic. And narcissists double down on their behaviors. They have no off-ramp. The way to rein themselves in. And when they're confronted or their beliefs are challenged, and their beliefs are very fragile. So if you get the pronouns wrong, or if you say something wrong to a trans person, a large part of the movement encourages an emotional reaction where they feel they're victimized. And based on that feeling of victimization, they're going to lash out at other people. And so what we see here is a sense of victimization in the crowd. And in the trans movement, the language is getting more and more dramatic and more full of hyperbole. So now we're hearing that there's a trans genocide happening. And a couple of weeks ago, Rolling Stone magazine had a headline, which they took down after about half a day, about the trans genocide. So we have a victim narrative that this cohort of activists, it's far left, it's not all trans people, but trans activists, are telling themselves that there is a genocide happening. And what's very frightening is that in their minds, this justifies their behavior of pushing back. So this is the case of a bully playing the game of a victim, and it's happening at scale. So it's not just one individual, it's a whole group of people. We're seeing escalating violence. We saw violence last week in New Zealand. I presented at a school board meeting in Ottawa on Tuesday night, where a local activist rallied up about 300 of these people. There were 4 separate assaults, 2 on minors, one on an elderly gentleman, one by a person who claimed that they were a principal of a school. We found out afterwards they're a vice principal. They're on video assaulting somebody. And it's all justified in the name of this escalating sense of victimization. So I'm really concerned where this goes, because there's no off-ramp for this movement. They're not dealing in a fact-based reality. The philosopher Voltaire said, those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. And I'm really seeing this now in this escalation.
What a great quote. You're absolutely right. And you brought something to light that we haven't actually discussed. I wish John was here too, because that is the whole issue of the mental illness and the narcissistic behavior. So absolutely. And, it's perpetuated, like you said, through the trans movement. And so young people that are being, funneled into this movement are being trained right from the get-go on activism and they're trained how to talk to their parents, to get their parents to do what they want them to do, right? You either affirm me or I'll kill myself, right? That was the rhetoric a few years ago. It's sure still there out of Reddit and Tumblr and all those places. And then, so they have learned pretty early on, many of them, to get what they want when they want it, and without any kind of pushback. Because let's face it, a few years ago, and parents were they were in this place where, what do? We don't know what to do. Like, maybe this is, maybe I should just be, affirming, agreeing with everything this child presents. And that's what they were told to do, of course, by our medical profession and by our politicians and by our media. So now here we are a few years down the line, and it's just a few years. It's only like a decade, right? And we have created a monster. We are creating such a mental health crisis in Canada and around the world. And now it's showing up on our doorstep if we dare challenge the narrative. So, yeah, thank you. So do you want to talk a little bit about more about narcissism, or do you want to talk more about your experience as a dad? I want you kind of to drive this, Shannon.
Yeah, I could talk a little bit about both, because speaking out and talking about this, and I didn't choose to do this. I hate doing it. He said, she said. My daughter started threatening to out me within about 10 days of me asking questions about her taking hormones. And I was gentle with the questions. I'm a concerned dad. I want to make sure that they're making the best choices that they can in their lives. And I was willing to extend good faith and listen and try to understand how they came to the decision to start taking hormone replacement therapy. And there's no coherent dialogue that comes with that, exactly for the reason you described, Anne, that children are trained both at school and in online groups in this so-called trans community, that if anybody disagrees with you, it's denying your existence, it's hateful, it's bigoted, and it's a very, very alienating indoctrination. And the lengths that people will go to. So my child was, I presented at school board earlier this week. I talked about freedom of expression in Canada, because a parent raising concerns about bathroom policy was censored at school board. And the local activists rallied up about 300 of their supporters, much like the mob that we saw around Billboard Chris. And a lot of the language and narrative that they used was that I was an abusive father in order to rally up this crowd. And so the whole crowd was there targeting or pointing to me as a hateful person, and a whole narrative around bigot and transphobia and far-right radical and free speech absolutism and all these things, when I just want to talk about what's happening. But there's really no lengths to which these people won't go in order to silence opposition. I mean, let's hope there's not, and let's hope that we can recognize a boundary anyway, because I think when people start believing that there's a genocide happening, then they actually start to justify in their minds killing other people.
That probably is exactly what's been happening, right? Because we already had this whole incident in Nashville on Monday, which was just so painful to see. And so we have the two sides. We have the victims who were murdered, and then we have the young woman who was transitioning and in all likelihood taking vast amount of testosterone, and had been probably over the years systematically brainwashed. And so there is this sense of victimhood, but it's not in the way that they spin the narrative. And, I'm thinking about you presenting at the school board and your daughter being there, and my heart I can feel that in my heart. I just can't even imagine when you're trying to protect women and children, and then your daughter has kind of gone to the other side, so to speak, and is in this place where she has become so indoctrinated herself, and that breaks my heart as a parent. I just applaud you, Chris, not Chris, sorry, Shannon, thinking of Billboard Chris doing the same thing, just for speaking up and standing out for the rest of the parents out there and for the children. We only have 5 minutes to go. I just wondered if Brad wanted to just jump in here. I bet you have some things you'd like to talk about, Brad, as a parent.
There is, I got to be honest with you, Shannon. I had the same thing at home here. My daughter didn't go on puberty blockers or any of that stuff because I engaged myself soon enough. We're here about helping people, and that's parents, grandparents, kids as well. You're right. This language, this whole transition, I'm sorry for the pun, but of the language has really confused the kids. They're at a very vulnerable state, all the way through adolescence, all the way through puberty, all the way up to adulthood. I can't believe that this is happening to our kids, and the help isn't able to be spoken. We're not able to communicate our help. I think that's why we've created the channel that we have. I think that's why we've created what we have created with Dr. Ann and John Euler. And special guests like yourself. But my kid came home one day and she said, "Dad, my teacher asked me today in drama who my girlfriend was." And I said, "Well, what did she mean?" She says, "Well, she wanted to know if I was a lesbian." And I said, "Well, what's that got anything to do with your teacher? Why is she asking you these questions?" And she says, "Well, she was just feeling sad for one of my friends and asked one of my friends if she was dating me." And I said, "What?" Shocked the hell out of me, to be honest with you. And I went, I got to start asking questions. Then I got, "Oh, Dad, you're transphobic. Dad, you're hating on everybody. Dad, and I went, "Oh yeah? Let me educate you some more." And that's when I take it to the next level. Now, while I would love, if my daughter was in your daughter's situation, I would be caring and forgiving and trying to be that dad who is helpful. But I'm not. I'm the dad whose daughter is just trying to test the waters, right? And so that's where I shut it down immediately. And I did that with a whole lot of force in terms of making sure that you're going to sit down with me. I'm going to show you the pictures. I'm going to show you what John Euler and Dr. Ann and I talk about 2 to 6 hours a day, every day of the week. And I'm going to prove to you what they're doing. And then from there, I tell you what, you can make your own decision. Come look at some top surgery. Come look at some bottom surgery. And you know what? After that, scared shitless. And I say that wholeheartedly because they just don't understand until they see the images. If they're going to continue to show these books to our kids in schools, I say every top surgery, every bottom surgery picture needs to be flooded in the market, and these people need to see what kind of gruesome, grotesque, and vulgar surgeries that are going on. And you know what? If it was me, I say, give me the power, and I promise I will. But I'd like to give every single one of those doctors committing surgeries the surgeries first, and we'll see whether you give those surgeries after you're done.
Indeed. Yeah.
That's the testosterone. That's the testosterone coming out, But I really appreciate Brad, because I think we need men.
I'm not here for the politeness of any of this, guys. I'm not here to be anybody but other than forceful in the sense of being educational, making sure that walking away what your steps and actions can be. You do not have to be afraid. You cannot be fearful any longer. Violence is already started, and if you back down, we're not going to get there. These are your kids.
Yes.
It's not our kids' fight, it's our fight, and I say that every single show. It's usually at the end, but here we are today, and actually, we are coming up to the end. So I want to thank you both for being here. There's no real answer or solution, Shannon, at this point in time. Please stay with us, though, because I know time is always limited, as John Euler likes to say. But we are going to do another second part with you, and there's some more to expose. Maybe Dr. Ann wants to give a little bit of a teaser right now on what's coming.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit more with Shannon and his involvement as it's kind of progressed. And I want to come back to this whole issue of testosterone and men protecting women and children. You know, that I just wanted to say I honor you guys, because you know what? We need you. We need you. And don't ever give up this fight.
Oh, there's a lot of men out there who are ready to stand on that line when that day comes. Unfortunately, that day isn't happening yet. Thank you both for being here. This is Unmasking the Trans Movement with John Euler. I'm your host, Brad Wilder. Remember, we're on BitChute. You can find us there. Check out our channel. We have all of our episodes, as well as you can like, share, subscribe, and don't forget to see us online at our website, unmaskingthetransmovement.com. Till next time, it's not our kids' fight, it's our fight. We'll see you soon.